The day's parliament session was supposed to be a routine one, but it soon turned into one of the most strained and volatile debates in recent ANC history. What was supposed to be yet another run-of-the-mill sitting of South Africa's legislators became a turning point few could have anticipated. The room packed with MPs getting ready for the customary sparring of talking points and political bobs was dramatically shaken into disarray by Ace Mega, once the Secretary-General of the ANC, who stood to address it. He was not out of place here. His voice, on the other hand, was like a whiplash that automatically quietened the room. Magashule, who had no hesitation in making provocative statements, displaying survivalist tendencies, and with a career filled with ambition and also scandals, took it further than ever before. In a breathtaking escalation, he called for the arrest of President Cyril Ramaphosa with immediate effect. The declaration didn't just rattle the chamber, it rattled the foundations of the ruling party itself. Gas filled the air. Certain MPs craned forward in shock. Others bellowed back in anger as security officers prepared for what appeared to be the ground-shaking eruption of a political earthquake. For viewers at home across South Africa, the moment was otherworldly. Here was a senior ANC leader who had once stood at the very center of the party's leadership calling for the arrest of an incumbent president. In a politics in which such clashes are typically cooled by imprecise charges and diplomatically phrased criticism, this was a coming to blows over the head of state. Magashule's incendiary speech was not mere hot air. He presented a string of explosive charges against Ramaphosa. He branded him with systematic mismanagement, corruption, cover-ups, and the egregious betrayal of the public trust. Ramaphosa, he contended, had overlooked the ANC's internal accountability processes and instead protected friends implicated in compromising the governance of the country. The image that Magashule presented was not of a tainted leader buckling under huge pressure, but that of a calculated manipulator who had set his interests ahead of those of the party and the country. For many who heard him, this was not just political theater. It was a deliberate effort to deprive Ramaphosa of legitimacy and redefine him as a corrupt leader who deserved to be prosecuted right away. What gave Magashule's speech such credibility was his insider status. These were not opposition party sayings. This was a man who had been very much entrenched in the workings of the ANC, privy to its deeper secrets, its hidden skeletons, and its finely tuned games of power. His intimate knowledge of the party machinery lent his accusations a credibility that the opposition could never achieve. For every syllable he spoke, there was an implicit question resonating through the chamber: what else does he know? Predictably, the opposition pounced on the opportunity with unbridled fervor. DA, EFF, and smaller party leaders quickly set about putting Magashule's intervention into context as irrefutable evidence of the ANC's internal implosion. They had no hesitation in blowing his words out of proportion, branding them as verification of what they had long maintained. The ruling party was corrupt, fragmented, and unable to correct itself. John Steinerson of the DA accused the day as a catastrophic failure of leadership. Julius Malema, never short on drama, was even more shrill, calling it the final nail in the coffin of the ANC's moral authority. Even small parties, normally smothered in large debates, made hay. Their MPs alternately asked for urgent investigations, sweeping reforms, and instant accountability. Abruptly, the chamber ceased to be a parliament and became a battlefield as ANC members were pushed into defensive roles against both their political opponents and one of their own. Within ANC benches, the response was divided and revealing. Some MPs came to Ramaphosa's defense, blaming Magashule for irresponsible actions intended to undermine party cohesion. Others, particularly those tacitly in favor of opposition factions, sat in stony silence, their failure to denounce him speaking louder than any words. The televised image projected into South African living rooms was stark. The ANC, so long fixated on presenting as united, now visibly and palpably split, leaderless, and exposed. What made the drama so more interesting was President Ramaphosa's reaction, or rather his failure to react, through Magashule's rant. Ramaphosa set his expression in Scrabble. His advisors' insiders report pleaded with him to have a say, to refute, to be strong. But there were no words. His silence was a shout. For some analysts, this was a strategic gesture, a statesman's bid to be above the spectacle and not give his challenger any more oxygen. For others, it was hesitation at the point of paralysis, a tangible evidence that Ramaphosa had lost control of the story in the party. Whatever the case, his silence made its indelible impression on the course of the day. Behind the scenes, the crisis worsened. ANC leaders rushed into crisis sessions as party veterans sought to contain the damage. Some suspected that Magashule's action was part of a bigger game, a coordinated attack designed to prompt a challenge to leadership. Others called for instant disciplinary actions against him, arguing that prompt sanctions were needed to reassert authority. But by the hour, the fissures deepened. Faction leaders started taking positions for an eventual post-Ramaphosa period, mobilizing in secret while the president's supporters attempted desperately to regroup. Legal commentators soon joined the fray, hypothesizing if Magashule's allegations would set formal probes in motion. Political analysts hinted that the ANC was at a breaking point, it could no longer brush aside evidence of internal rot piling up. For the general public, the show was both riveting and routine. Riveting in its ferocity, but routine in that South Africans long had been exhausted with corruption scandals and power struggles hogging the limelight over the country's pressing necessities. Today's parliamentary session was not only a show. It was a warning, one that echoes beyond the chamber doors. It was a warning to Ramaphosa that his grip on the top job is no longer solid. A warning to the ANC that its carefully constructed image of unity has cracked under the spotlight of national television, and a warning to South Africans that the governing party is entering one of the most explosive phases since the beginning of democracy. The question now is survival. Can Ramaphosa reclaim authority after such a public embarrassment? Can the ANC heal its wounds before they completely rip it under? Or will Mago's daring act be seen as the spark that fueled the start of the end of ANC hegemony? As the dust settles, one thing is certain. The storm unleashed today is anything but over. Each word Magashu utters hangs in the air like smoke. Each mutinous by Ramaphosa becomes more oppressive. And each faction in the ANC is rethinking its future. South Africans, opposition leaders, and ANC insiders alike are observing and waiting.